thank you so much for doing this, for joining us, and for putting the time and effort into putting all your thoughts down. Really appreciate it. I know you've actually got quite a lot on at the moment, which is a happy place to be right now,
Yes.
albeit at a specific time.
Yeah, I feel yeah, it's such a strange time in so many ways. I'm still unpacking it all, but yeah, I am insanely busy. I think I'm the busiest I've been in a really, really long time. And it's just been this weird exercise of, normally when I'm able to have a routine and, go to the gym and actually be able to leave the house and actually go to venues. I do quite well with that. And actually, I kind of really mastered that in the old ways of working. But it was, psychologically, it was a little bit unsettling when this lockdown happened because I am such a creature of habit and routine of, get up at 9, 8, get up at 8, go to the gym at 9, work out, have a coffee, answer emails, do this, have lunch. And I think now that I'm completely at home and also super, super, super psychotically busy, I've had to kind of find a new normal in that. But yeah, I am wildly busy, which I have moments where I want to complain, but I dare not because I feel very, very thankful, very lucky. So
yeah, it always makes me happy. We're in touch obviously with our community a lot and chatting to people, and some people are really busy, and that makes me happy inside because at the end of the day, it's a crazy time. We know that, and there are lots of new normals for different people. And at the end of the day, as long as people are in a positive place, fundamentally with good grounding for the future, then that's got to be a good thing. So,
totally.
which is a nice segue into talking about what we're going to talk about today. So, just to kind of kick off, to give people who are joining now, we're going to see this later, a sense of who you are and your story, so to speak. You're obviously American by birth, Tennessee
Yeah.
boy, which is great. And what's lovely is you're joining us now in the UK for good. Very proud recipient of the Tech Nation UK Entrepreneur Visa for Exceptional Digital Talent. I love the exceptional bit in there.
Yeah, it's I still cringe every time I have to say that because people are like, oh my God, I'm like the exceptional bit. But yes, that is their term, not mine. I would never. I feel like I'm quite British now, and that I would blush ever calling myself exceptional. So that's their words. But yeah, gosh, it's come a long way since Nashville, but especially the past year. Yeah, no, I've been working most of my life in of course in digital and social, and started out actually. It's very weird reading all this stuff now. How for millennials, which I firmly am, how we're now going into our second recession, and this is the second one for us. And
Yeah,
I graduated university in 2009 at the absolute peak or bottom, depending on what you want to call it, of the global financial crisis of 2008. And I went out into that, and I remember my commencement speech, which actually Dolly Parton was our guest speaker, which was incredible, at the University of Tennessee. Stanford got Steve Jobs that year, I think. Notre Dame got Obama, and got Dolly Parton, which was amazing. But I remember the chancellor of the College of Communications and Information and Marketing. Basically, the tone of it was, "Good luck," basically, like, and in a really warped, wonderful way. And this kind of new period is proof of that. I feel really thankful that I graduated in such a tumultuous, really kind of daunting time, because it was one of the worst times in modern history to graduate, and it forced me to pick up and move to Miami. And I knew no one in Miami, and I moved down there and didn't know a soul. And I was very lucky that my parents did help me out a little bit to kind of get me a flat and get me going. And I started freelancing at this really incredible but very notorious, this is a different Instagram Live in a different book to be written, PR agency that I'm very thankful for. But I was also working at J. Crew 40 hours a week because this internship was unpaid. And then I was working at J. Crew to get health insurance. I was going out on South Beach a lot. I had no clue what I was doing. But I ended up at Sapient, which at the time was the biggest independent digital agency in the world. And yeah, and then the rest of my career was kind of a case of the suddenlies and being at the right time in the right place. And was at Sapient in Miami for 2 years, and then London fell into my lap. we were supposed to, we went into a hiring freeze. And in my panic, I rang up everybody I possibly could, and including one of the account managers in the London office of Sapient. And she was like, actually, we have the reverse problem in the EU, and we need someone with your skill set in social media and digital strategy. Do you want to move to London for the summer? But I need an answer by tomorrow. And that was it. And I was on a plane, moved to London, was what was supposed to be 4 months, and never looked back, did 6 years. And my career really kind of grew from doing more social and kind of comm strategy to more kind of customer experience and experience strategy, and more of that kind of traditional consulting function, especially as Sapient kind of moved in that direction with Publicis acquisition. And then jumped ship 2.5 years ago, and decided to go freelance because I grew up at Sapient from age 24 to 30, and I think I turned 30 and had that kind of 30 crisis of what am I doing. And the past 2.5 years of freelancing has been interesting because I've done big gigs at places like AKQA and RGA if the brief was right and cool. But what I really have loved working with startups and tech startups, especially more retail and fashion and sustainable minded startups. And yeah, it's been incredible. It's been very scary. I think I'm losing my mind, and I think I've sometimes made the wrong choice every now and then, but then sometimes I think it's just been the best decision I've ever made. And it was in New York all of last year, sorting out the Tech Nation visa, which is it's a tough one to get, but somehow, some way, out of miraculousness, I ended up getting it. And now I'm back in London, and I'm still freelancing. I'm still, working with agencies and small, startups now. But I definitely, especially having that entrepreneur visa on my BRP card now, I really want to take it to the next level, and beyond working with entrepreneurs, do something equally entrepreneurial. So that's how we're here. That's a long-winded journey, but yeah, it's not been for the faint of heart. It's been kind of messy at times, but here we are.
It's amazing, and I think it's interesting. You're saying at the beginning there that millennials have been through 2 recessions, and I think there's this natural entrepreneurial spirit that emerges within this generation, which I see because a number of the community members are of that generation. If we can just give it that kind of massive bracket, but obviously also the entrepreneurs we work with and the founders, they are of that sort of mindset, and it emerges a lot, I think, in that generation, and it's fascinating. And I think for us, what we look for in the community and the freelancers we work with is we talk about the natural entrepreneurial spirit that exists in them as well. Not only does it give you guys a good understanding of how the businesses tick, but also it makes for a really good freelancer, just somebody who's able to think for themselves, like push themselves forward, run their own business. And as I say, that delivers a sense of empathy when you're teaming up with the brands that you work with, plus also just keeping your gig afloat, right? So anyway, that aside, let's jump into what we're going to talk about today. You've put together 6 recommendations for that very popular topic at the moment. How do I weather the corona storm? How does I strengthen my brand during these crazy days? And, I think we've talked about this before, but it's interesting because there's a lot of talk at the moment about the negatives and how do I survive? How do I keep my head above water? But actually as well, there's a lot of value in what does the future look like? And I'm a born optimist. I know you are as well. And I feel very strongly about, without having to sort of ignore what's going on. I mean, God, we're all in this together, and my God, so are we, without a doubt. But you have to lift your head up sometimes and look over the parapet at the same time. What's your take on that? Because I know we've got a similar headspace in that, but it'll be interesting to hear your views.
Yeah, I mean, and I can't keep kind of having deja vu referring back to the last recession. You really have, I think, the first piece of advice, or kind of the first thing I remember jotting down when I was writing this for you, is that just to take a big deep breath. And I think in situations like this, you really do have 2 choices of, you can completely kind of descend into chaos and paranoia and worst case, default to doom and disaster. Or you can, and sometimes that's good. So sometimes it is good to have a little small freak out and a micro cry, because it's healthy. And I think, sometimes the worst thing you can do is ignore your emotions and constantly pretend like everything's great. But I think in the long run, you do have to find a way to be positive and to just basically take a big deep breath and realize that even in a time like this that is absolutely insane, there is opportunity in it, and there is a reason for it, and there is a placement. I know that sounds very, Goop, Gwyneth Paltrow, manifestation, blah, 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 but it is the truth. I mean, there is, in every really horrendous situation, on the back end of it, there always is something really good, or multiple things that are really, really good. And it is an opportunity if you're willing to look for it. And sometimes that's really painful, but I think what that requires is just to stop for a second. And I think that was the one thing I certainly felt that selfishly, running all over New York, trying to pay double rent in London and, in New York City, get my visa back, try to freelance in New York. And I mean, I felt like last year was just madness, and it was just fun.
Whoop. I'll get you back in a minute, hopefully. We'll hold fire. We'll wait for Glenn to come back. If anyone's got any questions, by the way, at any point, then jump in and we'll make sure we bring them into the chat as well. Oh, it's gone. He's coming back, guys. It's gonna come back. There we go.
Am I back?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. No, what I was saying, just basically to kind of recap point one, is it's just, again, it's you have to make time in your day. I think especially if you're running a small business or if you're running your own brand, take a big deep breath and make sure you're carving out at least 10 to 20 minutes of your day to just really focus on your intention and what you're doing, and to just kind of find calmness and stillness in all of it. And I mean, my heart goes out. I know that you and I have been joking about this online and offline about people who have children at home and are having to, I have such, even all the funny memes aside, I have such a profound respect for people who are trying to run their own businesses, staying at home, having children at home, and all those types of things. I could not imagine, but I think that you have to make time for yourself, and you have to first, before you do anything or make any decision, breathe and really use this time and find the stillness and the quiet in it to kind of reassess your goals, your priorities, and why you set out to do this in the first place.
Yeah. And I think you're right. It's the same for us, but it's the same for a lot of the businesses that we chat to. It's because it's those times when you get a chance to realize, how do I fit into the future world? If we've got sort of an inkling of now where the future may end up landing, be it, a greater respect for the environment, I hope. Online is going to, if it wasn't booming before, our lives are practically going to be shifting online, for argument's sake. How do we find our place in that world? And for that matter, actually, do we exist in that world already? It's interesting. Some of the brands, one brand that we've been working with, a brand called Click, who I think I posted about yesterday.
Oh, yes. Fabulous brand.
Incredible. But they've been, they're on the pinnacle of launching for a while now, and they've just pressed go, because the future world is built for them, frankly. Refurbished phones, as I say, this deep respect for the environment, sort of a more cost efficient, simpler way of using tech, and for them it's more a case of take stock, and actually, rather than panic and think, this is nightmare time for all businesses, understand where I fit into the new world, and perhaps need to pivot, or just go, this is actually my opportunity. Let's push this now, so that when we come out of this, we're flying. So, and point two, audit with empathy. That's an interesting one.
Yeah, it is. I think that's a little bit, there's I think it's equal parts kind of necessity and practicality, but then also kind of, I think that, especially if you are lucky enough to have launched and, been running, search campaigns and PPC and, kind of programmatic and all this, if you're at that stage and you were lucky enough to get to that point, definitely the first order of business is go back and revisit all that and see, especially if you're using vendors and partners to run some of those ads and things like that. just go back and really double check the tone and kind of, you know, just make sure that it just doesn't come across really cheap and salesy. And, you know, even if I think a lot of brands I've been reading about have actually pulled their PPC and kind of, you know, more like programmatic search, paid search stuff, you know, that shows up in the search results and things like that, because the nature of those, since it is kind of very text driven, it's quite cold. And, you know, now is not the time, I think, for that kind of messaging. I absolutely think now is the time for brands to have a conversation, and we'll talk about that in the points preceding this. But in the most immediate step, you know, beyond carving time for yourself and breathing, go back and look at everything that you have firing right now, especially with search, paid search, social media campaigns, any agencies or PR partners you're working with, and just really make sure, A, that the message is appropriate, not tone deaf, but also B, is that really smart for you to financially be spending your money on? I think that, you know, it is kind of the practicality of, I think a lot of the stuff that you too, you know, a lot of the partners, and I do wince when I say this because a lot of the agencies that a lot of entrepreneurs work with are equally, you know, startup minded and fantastic. But I do think that a lot of the stuff, a lot of times you can probably learn yourself. I remember talking with a client, actually, who you, Michi and I have worked with, and Jan, this fabulous luxury sleepwear company. And, you know, a lot of the stuff, you know, it's, you know, we were talking about, if, you know, oh, you could do this, you could do this. And a lot of that you can learn on your own. And a lot of that you can, you know, if, especially now that we have a lot more time in our hands to focus, now's a fantastic time to learn a new skill set. And a lot of people, there's a lot of conversation about this, and it was, I think, perpetuated by Gwyneth Paltrow, who said that she was going to take this time to learn a new language. And it was a noble thought. It just came across very cringe. But she does have a point in the fact that I think that in this time, especially when you're auditing with empathy and figuring out, A, is your messaging on tone and not tone deaf, and is it helpful? But B, are there certain things that you're spending a lot of money on that maybe you could learn yourself, whether it's, you know, PPC or you know, social media copywriting, or maybe it's designing and editing social content or web content. There's a lot of stuff, I think, and a lot of time to step up your skills and, you know, definitely reassess what are some skill sets you wanted to learn that you just have not had time, that maybe if you spend an hour to 2 or 3 hours a week, you can maybe come back even stronger and probably save your business more money in the long run, as opposed to having a, you know, really expensive consultant or, you know, search agency or whatever that may be. So yeah, I think when I say audit with empathy, I think that, you know, it's be strategic, and if nothing else, just make sure that what you're running right now, A, is effective and, you know, giving you return on value, but B, doesn't come across as, you know, mega tone deaf and just wildly inappropriate right now.
Which brands have you picked up on that are doing a really nice job of sort of switching to, if not switching ready, but building on, or if not switching to a really community led, it's a much overused word, but, you know, switching from advertising, going, right, let's pull that back, let's really engage and have a conversation and show a bit more love.
Nike has been amazing. If you notice, Nike has pulled, and Nike is a mass, I would love to know what their budgets are for PPC and search, but they've pulled back tremendously. And, you know, also Nike's also very aspirational, kind of, you know, show them crazy, you know, all that kind of stuff. And you've noticed that they've taken a huge pullback, and I don't see, you know, the search ads, you know, the retargeting, and a lot of retailers in the, I think even, and I don't know if it's out of necessity or not, but I think Nike is just a great example of kind of setting the tone and setting the lead on doing so, and kind of taking the lead on that. And I think it's great. I think another example might be a little bit of a wild card, but it's definitely worth looking into for UK folks, because it might, the kind of oddness of it might be intriguing as well. But the New York Mets, the New York Mets are one of New York City's baseball teams. And full caveat, I know nothing about sports. I just like going for the hot dogs and the beer and popcorn. But the New York Mets, basically, of course, as with all professional sports, whether it's Premier League or the NFL, have had to cancel basically the baseball season. And anybody who's been a New Yorker has been to New York knows that New Yorkers, you're either a Yankees fan or a Mets fan. You know, and how do you market, and how do you still talk to people who love teams and feel so passionate about, you know, their team and the Mets, but you can't sell tickets. And if you get a chance, go on the New York Mets social media handles and kind of the content that they're doing, that they're speaking about, and it's really lovely, just because they're really speaking to the fact that a lot of fans are really heartbroken and really upset. but they're really tapping into the nostalgia and being fabulous, but also being just really genuine about it, without being gross. Or it's a very weird example, I know, but it's just wonderful, especially if you've ever been in New York, or you know anything about baseball. It's just wonderful.
Taking us all into a new world. Sports not my bag either, but it'd be good to see that. Cool. All right. And so reassess your digital toolkit, point 3. I mean, we've sort of touched on that already, but it's really interesting, this idea of, upskilling right at this time. You know, I mean, there are certain things that a lot of us probably are never going to be suddenly become the most fluent designer. But it would be interesting to understand, you know, some of the, and it kind of takes us into point 4 as well, looking for freedom, like some of the things that you can do, you can pick up for free, that you could perhaps upskill in. What you got some examples of what people would be looking at?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and two, when I say, you know, reassess your toolkit, I think a lot of it is also, you know, I think the reality of this, and again, I see the pros and cons to this, is let me say full caveat. I think you read a lot of stuff right now about how, and there's a lot of people really evangelizing it, about like everything is going to go digital. All the retail shops are going to shut. You know, no one is going to shop in store, do brick or mortar. You know, events are going to be canceled, and we're only going to do things in home and online. I disagree with that, and and selfishly, I really hope that's not true. However, I do think the stark reality, especially in the next 12 to 18 months, is that online and digital shopping and purchasing is going to be everything. I think you're going to see a lot of holdouts. I mean, even people as, you know, the big powerhouses like Chanel, who have, you know, completely, you know, abstained from doing e-commerce. I think there's going to be a mad dash to e-commerce. And I think everyone is going to have so much whiplash and scarring from this, that even the biggest holdouts on e-commerce and things like that, there's gonna be a huge push for that. And I think what that means for freelancers and people looking for that is top up your skills, know exactly, I mean, even if you know nothing about search or PPC, at least be able to speak that language, be able to kind of speak the language of, you know, social and things like that. I think for businesses, it's about kind of revisiting your digital properties, and, you know, really taking social really seriously, taking your website and kind of auditing that, and making sure that even if it's a really small e-commerce offering, that it's, you know, up to scratch. It's you know, it's UX best in class. It's simple. It's effortless. Like I said, I hope, and I don't fully believe that we're going to go completely digital. We're going to live in this, you know, Blade Runner style world. I do think that there will be about 2 to 4 really big steps towards being far more digital, and now's the time to get ready for that. And I think you have to look at what makes the most sense for your business, but have a think on that. And I think, you know, think long term here, because this will end, and it will, you know, we will get back to normal. But make sure that, especially when it comes to your e-commerce, it comes to your social, and it comes to anything you're doing from a paid digital perspective, that you know what you're doing and what works best for you, because now's the time to do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Completely agree. It's quite a nice opportunity to segue out and just talk a little bit about retail. I mean, this is obviously a lot in your background anyway. We've got quite a lot of retail clients that we work with, and it would just be interesting to understand from your perspective. Yeah, the pandemic is driving massive shifts in consumer behavior, as we all know, in so many different ways. I mean, some aspects of retail are flying, obviously, as we know, be it food, and then garden furniture, for God's sake. And then others are bombing, and then you've got the dynamic between, you know, sadly the high street suffering even more than it's ever done before, versus online flying even more than it's ever done before. What's your take on all of this, and where do you think we'll come out on the other side? What do brands need to prep for in that sense?
Do you know, let me say this. I definitely wholeheartedly think that the thing about this virus and kind of what has happened, and kind of going back to, there's opportunity in all this, even if it's painful. I think that this pandemic and kind of what has happened, it kind of has pushed through the inevitable of what's going to happen anyway. And I think that you can take that in many iterations. I think even from advertising, kind of the large scale agencies, that model was very broken, you know, a decade ago. And they, you know, even when the financial crisis happened, and a lot of people still clung to that. And even knowing that it was kind of going out of date. And I think that, you know, they were avoiding the inevitable. And I think that because of this pandemic, that will change. And retail's the same way. I think that there was a lot of things that were symptomatic that brands were warned about. And, you know, whether it was, really rethink the fact of, your carbon footprint and, in terms of your real estate footprint. And if it's really necessary to have, 500 retail locations, and, maybe it's better to have 200 that are, more integrated and personalized. We were talking about that 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, and people were warning brands about that. And I think that what's happened now has really kind of just been the final push. And we saw this coming. And I think that, for retail brands, I think that, it's beyond, I think, really considering, I think it's about kind of considering the 360 customer experience. I think that there's going to be a transformation, but I think it will be kind of coming back a little bit towards the middle. I think the kind of relying solely on the high street retail footprint, things like, Next and Topshop and, Debenhams and, all those, River Island, just having 400 locations. I think that was the wrong direction. But I also think D2C brands and fully only focusing on being digital, I think that was the wrong direction too. I think that we needed to find an equilibrium and kind of more of a middle of the road. And I think that this will probably force us to get closer to that, and kind of, again, going back to reassessing your digital toolkit, you have to look at everything from a marketing and business standpoint of, it's not one size fits all. You have to look at it and think, what is best for me? And, sometimes having a really big, amazing, huge retail location and store is fantastic and it is great for you. But, don't overlook things like, great delivery, great fulfillment services, customized packaging, flawless e-commerce experience. You have to find that middle ground. And I think that because of this pandemic, I think we came into it in such a time of extremes where, the old players were clinging on to the high street, and then, the kind of mega players like, Glossier and these like retail disruptors were, completely clinging on to D2C. And I think both are wrong. And I think that, I think that we will come out of this a little bit more closer to things more in the middle. Hopefully, I hope.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's been bubblings in the last few years as well of physical spaces being a part of the wider experience and being considered as that, rather than necessarily a retail outlet, a key retail outlet itself, but being a step in that journey and enabling that physical human element to step in and the experiential to play its part. When you can't, is that wine?
No, it is. It's homemade iced coffee. I love a cold brew.
That looks like a massive glass of red wine, which I wouldn't judge you for.
No, I will say
that would be. I agree. I think this sort of these ridiculous number of stores that are cookie cutter is of the old world. But there is an opportunity, as you say, to kind of find that middle ground by those spaces becoming kind of, if you like, temples to the brands of sorts, places where you can go and really immerse yourself in those brands and that experience. I don't know how you feel about that.
It's just the one thing everyone ignored that people need to listen to. And I think so many brands, in my whole entire career of working in strategy and marketing, it's that the cardinal sin everyone breaks is no one listens to the customer. And there is so much data and there is so much insights out there that literally listen to your consumer. They will tell you. And it's just things as simple as do a survey monkey and send out a survey, do a focus group. The insights are there. You don't have to have some massively robust, data system, though it helps if you do, but listen to your customer. Your customers will tell you what they want and what they don't want. And I think that there's so many different, iterations of, gluttony and being guilty of this, whether it's having, way too many retail locations or, even I see a lot of, digitally innovative brands who, will develop these technologies, that are just incredible, but they're more PR stunts. I mean, Farfetch, a brand I love Farfetch, fabulous brand, lovely website, love the collection of designers, and I love the whole kind of, model of, 300 boutiques on one website, etc. I think a lot of the stuff that they did, where they partnered with Gucci and did, 90-minute delivery, if you lived in Milan or London, it's like, does the customer want that, or was that just a PR stunt? And I think that, this store of the future craze that, everybody's trying to latch onto, that's fine and it's cool and it definitely gets you into the publications and positions you in a way. But just make sure that's what your customer actually really, really, really wants, because there's still a lot of brands who are telling customers like, you need this, this is what you want, you don't even know you want it. And it's just really be very careful with that. And I think that especially with what's coming after this, and sadly probably a recession, I think a lot of people are going to have no choice.
Yeah. Interesting question that's popped up. Do you think it scales down to independents, small artisanal brands, as well as the big guys as well?
Do you know, that is a secret hope of mine, is that I hope that people will, I think, understand. I think that, you know, beyond the kind of climate change and kind of the aspect of how we're seeing the immediate results of what happens when people slow down and don't go out as much, you know, with those pictures of like the Los Angeles skyline and all that stuff. I think that a lot of people are really waking up to the impact of, you know, shopping small. And I remember there's this huge kind of push of, you know, if you can, don't shop at, you know, Starbucks and Sainsbury's and things. Impact of, you know, and brands and businesses is good of work. I think that, yeah, I think a push to more independence. I hope that's true, and I have a hypothesis that I think that will be a huge outcome of that. You know, I think something to kind of roll this over into the freelance perspective of this. You know, one thing about working remotely that has been wonderful is I think, you know, this has again been a swift kick in the rear for a lot of companies to finally let loose of control and actually let people work remotely. But I think the great thing about that is it might open up the talent pool more, you know, where I think, you know, you see so many job postings with the big agencies and the big guns of, you know, must live in New York, must be based in London, must be based in Paris, must be based in Berlin. You know, where there's just as many intelligent, fantastic, incredible people who live, you know, in Bournemouth, or, you know, who live in, you know, Newcastle, or, you know, who live in the Scottish Highlands, you know. And it's, I think that that will be a huge, hopefully, kind of benefit of this, is it will kind of maybe hopefully open up the workforce and the talent pool a little bit more to just, you know, to people who, you know, it's not going to be about locations or the big splashy names that you've worked for. You know, and I'm biting the hand that feeds, being the fact that I've only worked in New York and London and Miami for, you know, big agencies, but I do hope some of the kind of the more smaller independent, you know, talents that are based, you know, not in the big cosmopolitan hubs, it evens that playing field too.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, yeah, you're right. This sort of sense of this this downscaling from big, like epic, to small and community, whether that be, as you say, in the talent pool or the brands. I think people are going to respect their local brands or the smaller brands. I mean, you've seen it before, but I think you're seeing it more so, that you know, people are backing the small businesses, people are backing the young brands. And I think that, you know, as you said before, and it's kind of leads on to our last couple of points, you know, lean into your communities and revisit your services and offerings. Taps into what you were saying before, like listening to your customer. You have so much more of an opportunity when you're smaller and more hands-on and more intimate, if you like, with those who are shopping with you, or buying from you. That is a massive opportunity, arguably, for the smaller brands amongst us, in these times when no one, you know, all holds, you know, everything, all the holes barred, no holes, everything's to play for. You know, then the smaller brands can really tap into that. I don't know. Yeah, do you want to talk us through the last couple of points?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's I think that, you know, the kind of, you know, the beauty of this, and I think that, like I said, I intentionally look at this with, you know, the rose tinted glasses, and the optimistic part of this, is, you know, I think that there will be a lot of good that comes from this, in terms of the fact that, you know, I think the smaller vendors are better positioned, and I think that the people who are kind of, you know, the smaller kind of skill set are better positioned to change and to adapt and to kind of, you know, lean into their communities. But I think the bigger brands, and the brands that, you know, have amassed millions of followers, I don't think they're doing a really good job. And I think now is, in terms of going, kind of tying this back together, about taking a big deep breath, doing an audit with empathy. Talk to your communities, especially if you've had success, you know, building 100,000, 200,000 followers. Oh my God, you have tons of people. You know, even if they say the average engagement rate on Instagram for, you know, a brand under 200,000 is about, you know, 10%. Well, that's 20,000 people right there who probably want to talk to you. So, figure out a way to start opening up, your brand. And again, I have a think on, what you're trying to achieve and what the objective, don't just fire up an Instagram live just to have a chat, 'cause I think that could do more harm and from a PR perspective, but really have a think and really talk to your communities about, what they like about your customer service offering, what they think you guys could do better, where they think you really have dropped the ball, what products they think that they would love to see you guys, produce that you guys aren't producing, whether it's bigger sizes, more petite sizes, or, more custom formulas, or, maybe less of this, more of that. Now is the time. Now is absolutely the time, especially before things hopefully get back to normal and kind of re-accelerate again and we all get distracted by the day and day. Really talk to your communities and really engage them in conversations, whether it's, behind closed doors or public facing, and, and do a lot more kind of community initiatives. But going back to what I was saying about auditing with empathy and making sure what you're broadcasting out, now is not the time to be just blasting out broadcast messaging. I think one of the cringiest things that it still drives me nuts is, all these emails you get, whether it's Hugo Boss or, all these big companies of like, we're all in this together. And it's like, you'll get these emails saying, us here at X, massive corporation, value you. And it's like, I don't want to hear about that. It's like, this is a PR statement that, someone's kicked out. Do something that has more of a, humanity to it, and, really dig into the humanity of this, because I think now more than ever, especially where the social consciousness is, oh my gosh, now's the time to do this. And so many brands have either been waiting for it or been scared to do it. Jump off the ledge and talk to your communities, whether you have 2,000 followers or 400,000.
Yeah. Are there any sort of tips and tools you reckon are some of the best ways to reach out to your community?
Yeah, always, I think, if you're, I think, going live and doing things like this is very brave, especially if you're a big brand and there's a lot of PR and legal issues behind it. You utilize really simple, mundane things like, asking questions on Instagram to your followers, doing polls, yes and no. I mean, it's not rocket science. Or, sending out surveys, or, doing things like that to kind of, again, figure out what your objectives are in the years ahead of what you're trying to do, whether that's, revamp your product SKUs and catalog and figure out how you kind of dial that up, dial that down, overhaul your digital offering, and just ask your community, would you want to see this? Yes or no? What do you think, what's one brand, you think that, that we could, better be like, or, just, you got to be, I think, a little bit more open and brave. And I think it's much easier for the smaller startup brands to do that, than the Nikes and the Hugo Bosses and, the Chanels of the world, who would never dare do things like that. But a lot of the stuff and the ways to do it it's not rocket science. It's, using tools like this, to just add a layer of humanity to it and kind of act like an influencer would, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Another question has popped up. Do you think there'll be a bigger move now for towards sustainability from brands?
Yeah, I really, truly, honestly believe that some of the most remarkable pictures from this whole entire crisis have been the shots of cityscapes. The fact that, there's now fish swimming in the canal in Venice. LA has had, crystal clear skies for 3 weeks. You can hear birds chirping on Madison Avenue in New York City now. I mean, that
you can see the stars here in London. I think it's just literally, it's insane. I haven't seen the stars in London. I've been here for like 20 odd years.
People are not, but I think that has been one of the biggest profound impacts. I don't think anyone's going to forget this. So I think this is one of those things where people say things are not going to return to normal. I fully agree with that. That I think that there's going to be less of a tolerance and less of an appetite for, I think, just belligerent practices in manufacturing, and I think, in terms of carbon footprint. But I also think, though, in consumption as well, I do think the sad reality, especially in the next probably 12 to 18 months, because of a recession, people will spend less. But what they do buy, and I'm not saying people won't buy luxury brands. I'm actually working with a luxury skincare brand right now. We were just doing some survey and some kind of poll taking, and most of the people we've talked to who are luxury consumers have said they'll still buy big ticket items. They'll still buy a $200 face cream, or maybe that blouse, but they're going to buy less. They'll buy more with intent, but they won't buy more quality products. So I think now is the painful but wonderful opportunity to maybe shrink your product offering and make it more sustainable, and think about, maybe having less products that are more well made with more of an environmental impact in mind is better than just having 4,000, different product SKUs. So I think, yes, I absolutely think one of the beautiful but it will be painful from a supply chain perspective and all the workers it affects on things like that as well. A more massive push to more conscious, sustainable consumption.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. There's definitely a feel that people are recognizing that we lived in this world of excess before, and scaling back, be it, as you say, spending with a bit more conscience on brands that are acting sustainably, and or for that matter, just buying selectively, buying those items, like not all of the time, just those few big ticket items that you might want from brands that you genuinely believe in. And I think that anyone who thinks otherwise at the moment is going to be in for a big shock.
Yeah, 100%. I think that it's, I think the big retailers, I think the big ones, the River Islands, the Next, those really kind of high street fast fashion brands, I think that's going to be a massively painful schism in that market. And my heart goes out to the employees who work the hourly jobs there. But however, from a business standpoint, I'm really happy to see that. It's not happy to see probably the layoffs and the furloughs that are going to happen because of it. But from the environmental impact aspect of it, I think it's wonderful because it's the model of that. I'm a very big advocate for sustainable fashion and kind of reuse and pre-owned luxury and things like that. And selfishly, I will be very happy to see that change because it's, again, I think that's been coming for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. You couldn't agree more. Good, amazing. Any last thoughts from you? Any last questions from people who are online at the moment? I'll wait for them to pop up, but any last thoughts from you in the process?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's, you can drill on and kind of drag on and on about it, but I think the biggest thing I would say is hang in there, everybody. And it's so cliche, and I think a lot of people don't want to hear it because it's frustrating to hear, but focus on the simple stuff right now. And focus on, there's a meme that was going around. I reposted my Instagram stories a while ago, but it's just a simple Venn diagram. And it's I think one of the circles is things that I can control, and the other one is like things that matter to me, and then the overlap is what I should focus on. And it's the truth, and you might only find that there's 5 things that mean a lot to you, and it might be your family, your flat, your health, and making X amount of money. And I think it's just figure out those simple questions of what really does make you happy, and and everything else, just don't worry about it and hang in there. We'll get through this. And even though it's probably excruciatingly painful to even be able to realize this now, I firmly believe that what is on the other side of this will be needed and will be so much better. Yeah.
No, I think agreeing on that note, the born optimist in us both can take some comfort. So good. All right. Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining. To everybody online now and to anyone who's watching later, if you want to read a bit more about what Glenn's talked through today, then the full piece is at engineerspioneers.com/pioneering spirit. And you very kindly said that you're happy to give 30 minutes totally free for anyone who is keen to chat, just to chat through any of this stuff, anything that you're going through that you think Glenn might be able to help with. He's more than happy to give his time to do that. So if you want to take Glenn up on that offer, then give us a shout, hello@engineerspioneers.com, and we'll get that set up as soon as possible. All right, we'll go out. Well, I wouldn't say go out. Let's go out to your balcony if you've got one. Enjoy the sun, which has now come up, although it's flipping cold. We will speak soon. Thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time, and I hope it was helpful.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.